15 coverage of Grand Prix Las Vegas, the limited rounds. I'm Brian David Marshall, joined in the booth by Pro Tour Hall of Famer Paul Rietzel, and he is also an ultimate guard teammate of Andrew Kunio. And I asked you before, and you said Andrew Kunio doesn't really have any major preferences as far as deck archetypes.
Yeah, Andrew Kunio, is a veteran of the game, and I think that the longer people play, the more they find themselves open and flexible the deeper into a draft format. So here, Dominaria, a very well-established format, and Andrew is comfortable drafting any kind of deck.
So of course, it says 12-1 there, but actually both of these players, I believe, are 13-2, and this is a 12-2, and this is a clear winning in to get to 13-2 and put themselves in the top 8.
Yeah, for Andrew, he's in 6th place in the standings right now. A win will certainly get him in. Nicholas is in 9th. With a win, he'll have a little bit of a tiebreaker sweat at 13-2, but probably still should make it.
And John Finkel's first pick of Pro Tour Dominaria, Rampaging Cyclops, comes down, and it's looking to outrace that Sarah Disciple.
Yeah. We've seen, these white-blue decks with the Sarah Disciple and the historic triggers, and a lot of times they like to pass on turn 4, representing something like Wrath Capuchin or Gideon's Reproach or Into the Royal. Or, Blink of an Eye.
And we're going to see Gideon's Reproach here on a Wizard's Furied Rampaging Cyclops. Would have been great to have a run amok there.
Yes,
Andrew Kunio.
That is the time to have run amok for sure.
But, not really much of a clock coming in here from the Sarah Disciple, but that's about to change. Here is a Cloud Reader Sphinx from Nick Neal. He also has a Blood Tallow Candle on the table.
Yeah, and Andrew hasn't done too much this game, but he's got plenty of cards in his hand, so.
Yeah, we're going to get those life totals updated, hopefully, and maybe the records.
We see Andrew utilize Fire Intervention here. So, again, the Sarah Disciple, not a major threat. Cloud Reader Sphinx, the first major threat that Nick was able to stick. Andrew, of course, ready with some removal. Red-black deck is usually going to have some removal the first couple threats.
Scry into Cloud Reader Sphinx into another Cloud Reader Sphinx.
Chaining Sphinxes.
Sphinges. Yes, that's the plural. I've always wanted there to be a Sphinges card in Magic.
Uh-oh.
Oh, what is this?
Wow. That is a attractive Blood Tallow Candle target, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that is a...
Time of Ice, not the best answer to the Kazarov, and Kazarov's going to be able to do some serious work here.
Yeah, Kazarov, Sengir, Pure Blood. And let's see. Time of Ice is going to just keep that locked down. 8 mana here for Andrew Kunio. And he is going to shoot the Cloud Reader Sphinx twice.
Yeah, and importantly, that gets Kazarov out of Blood Tallow Candle range.
Wow.
And is just an absolutely fantastic turn 8 for Andrew. Nick, Time of Ice locking down Kazarov. Next turn, it's going to return it to his hand. Then, of course, Blood Tallow Candle will be able to deal with it. But in the interim, Kazarov's just going to decimate Nick's board.
Wow, and there's a Juggernaut. It's going to get a trigger on the Sarah's Disciple.
And again, the life totals aren't totally updated right now, but that Sarah Disciple is plinked in for quite a bit here.
Yeah, it's gotten at least 3 attacks in for 2.
Andrew's probably right around 13, somewhere around there.
He kills the Juggernaut. And Kazarov's just been a machine gun for him here.
Yep.
And so now Time of Ice is going to return Kazarov.
And we see another Saga in Nick's hand. I don't know if that's a second copy of Time of Ice or perhaps a Mirari Conjecture. But
Fall of the Thrawn would be pretty good here.
Wow.
Oh, there's Lyra. Wow, Lyra Dawnbringer.
And Sarah Disciple just keeps plinking away.
Yeah, it just keeps getting in.
Andrew seems to be quite flooded here. He has another land, so that's land number 10.
I mean, we've talked about this Blood Tallow Candle, but no 6th land.
Right.
So, theoretically, Andrew could get a turn to untap with his legend.
Right. He may feel like he needs to risk playing Kazarov into the Blood Tallow Candle and then untapping with it. That might be his only way to win this game.
I mean, he's at 6. So there's Kazarov. Yes, something. Also a Kelton Warcaller. And is there a 6th land? It doesn't look like there's a 6th land there. But there is another Time of Ice. Oh my gosh, and that's going to be the game. Double Time of Ice for Nick Neal. Wow, his deck's very good.
Yeah, so Time of Ice is actually a card that I don't like very much in most decks. In Nick's deck, it looks excellent. When you have some flyers, some tempo elements, Time of Ice can often, sneak in those last few points of damage. Andrew, with a very land-heavy draw, very removal-light draw, drew a bunch of kind of like dirtily kind of creatures like multiple Cyclops and a Keldon Warcaller. Not the right cards to have against Nick's flying.
So meanwhile, you can see that the hall is, things are starting to wind down here at Grand Prix Las Vegas. The PTQs and the beta qualifiers have all sort of condensed to the other side of the room. I can tell you that in the last beta qualifier, the last spot for a chance to sit down and open 24 beta booster packs, Mike Sigrist and Mark Herberholz are on opposite sides of the bracket in the top 4 of the last qualifier.
Wow.
So a lot of great players already qualified for that event. Luis Scott Vargas, Ben Stark, Martin Yuza.
Yeah.
Hemant Patel, someone who's not going to sort of has the same accomplishments as those guys, but is a grinder from New York who once qualified for the Pro Tour just by drafting every day. And going to Grand Prix and just doing side event drafts. He was a Planeswalker Points invite to the Pro Tour. Tim Rivera, one of the great limited players from the western half. I kind of find him analogous to Mike Sigrist.
Okay, wow.
So it's really, really an exciting draft. And it's gonna be so cool. We're gonna watch 24 packs of beta be opened. I don't know that I've seen 4 packs of beta get open in my life.
Yeah, and
it might be right around 4.
And 3 Hall of Famers, potentially joined by either a Player of the Year or a Pro Tour champion coming up, are going to be doing a Rochester draft, which is a format that's fallen out of favor in the last couple of years, but it is a treat, something that deeply enfranchised players will be familiar with, and I think from a spectator's perspective is really fun to watch.
Especially if you just want to watch beta packs come out of packs and be flipped out onto the table. I can tell you they will get the white glove treatment.
Yes.
It's been fun. It's fun to watch. You and I are going to be commentating on the draft.
Can't wait.
And we're going to be joined by Aaron Forsythe.
Wow.
In the booth. He's coming in to talk about this with us. Aaron is an aficionado of the Rochester draft format.
And that's about maybe about 60 to 90 minutes away from now.
We can't do it until that last beta qualifier slot is sold out. So basically, someone's going to win that draft and then get marched over here and go into the feature match area and rip open a beta booster.
Fun.
All right, we're underway here. Andrew Cunio's got a blood tallow candle. Nick Neal has cast Opt and Mesa Unicorn, and there is Howling Golem, a card we talked about earlier. You said a card that went from unplayable in your mind when you first looked at the format to, kind of playable.
Right, yeah, I think it's... They haven't been they didn't used to make artifact creatures this good, right? That are about fair rate in terms of power and toughness, and then an ability which is symmetrical, but you can often use to your advantage. So I think as a curve filler, it's an absolutely fine card. The fact that it triggers a lot of things with historic clauses is highly relevant as well.
So there you see Andrew attacks into the Mesa Unicorn, and Academy Drake gets to draw a card for his efforts. And then that's a Thallid Soothsayer.
Yeah.
That joins the battlefield, so he can draw a lot of cards.
Right, so not the highest card quality from Andrew coming out of the gates here, but he has both colors of mana, has come out smoothly, and, he's pretty happy with his start. Nick's certainly plenty happy with his start as well.
Is it Time of Ice time yet?
Not yet, and Andrew's got to be really happy that combat step only cost him 2 points of damage. What he really didn't want to see is, his something deal with his Thallid Soothsayer, and then maybe Nick start to play that tempo game again.
But Call the Cavalry, kind of a big addition to the board presence for Nick Neal. He gets to, has 4 creatures on the board, doubles the amount of bodies he has to attack and defend with.
Right, but Andrew has this pretty well scoped out. His creatures are well sized to deal with the threats that Nick is presenting. The Academy Drake is plinking away, and Andrew's going to want to have to find an answer for that eventually.
What are the if you just attack 2/3s into a board full of 2/2s? Well, you know what? That's probably not going to happen here. We're just going to see Eldest Reborn. He's going to take down one of the tokens. That's what Nick does with the sacrifice portion. Next turn, he's going to lose a card from hand.
Yep. And then the third chapter on the Eldest Reborn, as we can see now, there are no creatures or planeswalkers in the graveyard, but Andrew not only has the Thallid Soothsayer, which can sacrifice a creature in a pinch, but Blood Tallow Candle. So he may be looking to get back either an Academy Drake or a Mesa Unicorn, or perhaps something else if Nick adds another creature to the board.
Something Nick has to think about here.
Right.
He might not want to commit something else to the board.
Right.
Meantime, he's just going to fly in for 2 here. Yeah, he's like, I'll put an honor guard out on the table. That's fine. If you really want it, you can have it. Discards a land.
And Andrew has to love his position here, right? So his life total is still fairly healthy. I think probably around 14 or so. And he's done a very good job gaining card advantage. He's well established onto the board.
He's going to cast Dark Bargain, but that gets unwound.
Wow.
And he just passes the turn. No 6 land, by the way. Kind of important here for Andrew Kunio.
Right.
And again, that card represented more than just drawing 2 cards. It also gave him the opportunity to put a good creature into his graveyard.
Great point.
For the Eldest Reborn.
Right.
So a really timely counterspell for Nick Neal.
And so Andrew's going to be forced to, if he wants to get value from the third chapter of the Eldest Reborn, he's going to be forced to sacrifice one of his creatures to Thallid Soothsayer with the ability to stack. So basically, he's just going to choose not to value that extra card. He feels like from a tempo perspective, he needs to continue casting things. So Andrew deciding how to navigate this. He has the ground pretty well gummed up, but that Academy Drake keeps plinking away, and he wants to find an answer to that, and he has to also consider the fact that Nick could have something like copies of Time of Ice that were so effective in Game 1.
Now there's a Gitu Journey Mage, but no other wizards in play.
Okay. So Andrew electing not to sacrifice a creature to the Thallid Soothsayer doesn't look like the turn worked out as well as he had hoped.
All right, there you see Andrew falls to 12. There's a little bit of a hiccup, but we got it all. I can tell you in the beta draft qualifier, Mark Herberholtz lost his semifinal match, and Mike Sigrist's semifinal is going to Game 3.
Okay. So Andrew has this, again, has the ground pretty much gummed up, but he's going to be forced to use the Blood Tallow Candle on this Academy Drake. Just doesn't want to take any more damage against the deck with such strong tempo, and that clears the way.
And here you see the Cloud Reader Sphinx finds the perfect opportunity to land.
Right. Now, Andrew playing red-black, in theory, he has additional removal spells, and I think we see a copy of Fiery Intervention in his hand, but no offense, right? Andrew with 3 kind of mediocre creatures on the table that are doing a good job of holding the ground, but he really needs to find a way to really turn the corner. So,
and you see Nick putting a couple cards on the bottom of his library.
Something like Kazarov would be
I
quite
think
nice.
That might be what we're going to see right now. There it is. Kazarov.
Yeah, Kazarov, brutal here. Andrew's life total still high enough that it kind of demands an immediate answer. The interesting thing will be, what if Nick just offers an attack with the Cloud Reader Sphinx? We're gonna learn a lot about Andrew Kunio. That would be a pure magic moment. Oh, and Nick looks like he just drew Invoke the Divine, which would have been nice to get rid of that candle a couple turns ago.
It looks like he's going to invoke the Howling Golem. Just get that out of there and open up more attacks from it. Also means he can do it in a way where the Soothsayer's tapped.
Mm-hmm.
He's tapped out for the Soothsayer, can't draw a card. And,
great point.
And he gets to gain some life out of that exchange that way.
Yeah, Nick elects not to attack him with the Cloud Reader Sphinx. He looks at Andrew and he goes, "That's the kind of guy who might just call me here." He just might be crazy enough.
Yeah, there's a lot on the line here. These players are playing for a top 8 berth. Andrew Kunio now at 8 mana. for Kazarov. And he can just start shooting down this board.
Right. He's kind of thinking right now, okay, does it make sense for me to just go after this Cloud Reader Sphinx right now? Or do I want to say go so I'm in the best position to react to maybe something like, I don't know, on Sarah's wings or something of that nature? He's just going to go for it right now.
Yeah, he shoots the Sphinx.
And part of the benefit of this play is it gets the Kazarov out of range of Gideon's Reproach. Of course, really unlikely that Nick has Gideon's Reproach in his hand because he would have attacked with the Cloud Reader Sphinx into Kazarov on his turn.
Right. So he gets in for 6. 2 counters go on Kazarov. He does have a Time of Ice in hand. But Time of Ice is not really going to be the tempo card you want it to be here because Andrew's going to still have time to just machine gun down
Absolutely.
the rest of Nick's team before he gets any payoff from that Time of Ice.
Right. In theory, you could Time of Ice, lock down a Soothsayer, attack with everything, but yeah, Nick with a defensive Time of Ice, and these are the sorts of games where
that is not what you want that card to be doing.
Right. You can see kind of we talked about some of these sagas, the Mending of Dominaria. We didn't get a chance to see a game where that card was bad. Here you see a game where Time of Ice is going to really just look kind of mediocre.
And it sounds simplistic to say this, but that's what you want from a Magic card. Is it's good when you're ahead,
right?
But it's also a good card when you're behind, and
right?
That's just not really the case with Time of Ice.
No, it's purely a tempo play, and look, it's important. I mean, Nick can't just let Andrew grow his Kazarov to a 10-10 and kill him with it. So it's still going to serve an important function, but ultimately it's a delaying tactic, and Nick still needs to find a long-term answer to this Kazarov, which is going to rip him apart.
Yeah, over this turn and the next turn, Andrew can shoot 3 creatures, by the way. 3 creatures is what Nick has.
Right.
He's going to tap the Rampaging Cyclops. Andrew's like, okay. And Andrew can, in fact, use his mana to cash that in for a card if he wants, if he doesn't want to have that gummed up back in his hand. Knowing he's just going to go to work with Kazarov. And a ton of cards here for Nick. Looks like he's going to call the Cavalry.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, Andrew's going to get 3 more activations of that Kazarov before the Time of Ice returns it to his hand. That removes the creatures that Nick already had in play, but Call to the Cavalry will allow Nick to maintain a board presence after Kazarov is returned.
Shoots the lifelinking Mesa Unicorn first. Wow.
So I think we'll see.
I've not had a chance to play much with Kazarov. Pretty exciting when you draw it and 8 mana.
Yeah, it's one of those cards, certainly. So
here you see two of those knights. So it kind of just gets to deal with the entirety of that Call the Cavalry.
Right.
And you see those both go back up into hand for Andrew.
Nick with the Cloud Reader Sphinx, which can help him dig to potentially something to answer that Kazarov, but there's
maybe a Blessed Light.
Yeah, something of that nature. There's not that much that cleanly answers it. And we've seen Andrew play so cautiously. I mean, he's had 1 attack step, basically. He's really been valuing protecting his life total. He's just been sitting there and waiting.
So Neal says go.
Right.
So does that mean there's a Syncopate in hand?
It could be.
A Wizard's Retort?
Yeah, both of those are possible. It may also be that he feels like he needs to bluff something of that nature, that he can't win if Andrew just decides to just drop Kazarov on the table again. So Nick is hoping that maybe they'll stare at each other for a few turns until Nick actually does draw the right answer.
Right, I don't have the counterspell, but
right.
If I can make you think I do, I can eventually draw one. And other cards, and yeah, Andrew just goes on the offensive here. And Gitu Journey Mage is going to trade with the Benelish Honor Guard. Unless there's something like... Nope, nothing. Andrew's just happy to take that trade. Gets in for a little. He's going to be Rampaging Cyclops now. Like, see if you want to counter that. No. Deathbloom Thallid, you want to counter that? Nope. Okay.
Ooh, and Really nicely navigated, I think, there by Andrew. I don't know if Nick actually has a counterspell on his hand or not, but Andrew is realizing I don't have to expose my Kazarov to something like Syncopate or Wizard's Retort. I can win a fair game. I'm going to make Nick make the first move, knowing that I can always play a Kazarov after Nick taps out.
It's a tough spot for Nick to be in here, right? Like, he wants to cast that Cloud Reader Sphinx, but
right.
He knows that means Kazarov's coming down, but here it goes.
Right. Really tough spot for Nick, and when Andrew said go and then Nick didn't utilize those 5 mana, just untapped, Andrew felt like, wow, that was a really key moment in the game. There was nothing like a Wrath Capuchin or something like that forthcoming. So, Andrew has to feel amazing about his spot here.
Let me ask you, do you ever in this situation just attack the Rampaging Cyclops in? You know you're only going to get the 1-for-1 with the token. If he double blocks. Andrew's like answering that question. He's attacking with everything.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if Andrew has some kind of a trick here, given that how long he paused on the last combat step with the Journey Mage, and he does.
He's got to run amok.
So this is a different utilization of run amok rather than using it to get your opponent a little bit lower on life. He's going to use it to increase size creature. I'm not sure why the Soothsayer died.
Yeah, the Soothsayer was
a 5/6, got blocked by a 3/4, right?
Yeah. It should be in play.
Or unless I'm missing something.
I don't think so. But
no, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe there was a double block.
Well, here's Lyra, and we've got a legend standoff here between Kazarov and Lyra. But Fiery Intervention is going to take out the legend, and it's also going to take out Nick Neal here in Game 2. And it doesn't matter whether or not he threw away a Soothsayer because he had more than enough to finish that game off. And we are headed for Game 3 with a slot in the top 8 here at Grand Prix Las Vegas on the line for these two players.
Wow. Exciting stuff. And we see the difference in Game 1. Great game for Time of Ice. Nick's on the offensive as deck wants to be a tempo, aggressive, lean on Andrew strategy, and Time of Ice didn't give Andrew any time to recover. Game 2, it was Andrew who was the one who was able to get the shields up. Time of Ice, only was a delaying tactic, and ultimately not having access to a long-term answer to Kazarov did Nick in.
One of the things we always talk about when we talk about limited formats and about evaluating cards in limited is this concept of mana sinks, something to do with your mana, mitigating mana flood, all those kind of things. This is something you look at a card like Kazarov, and you see, there's not a lot of cards that Andrew could have had there in such a mana heavy game where you had 8, 9, 10 mana in play. And to be able to just use that all the time, you really see an example of why that's something that people like you and Luis and Marshall Sutcliffe talk about all the time when you're evaluating cards.
Yeah, traditionally a limited deck will have very few ways to use a 6th mana and almost no ways to use a 7th mana source. And so basically every land that you draw after land 5 is either bad or literally has no function in the game whatsoever. In the case of Andrew, and specifically with the card Kazarov, as you mentioned, he's happy to draw a 12th land as long as he has a Kazarov in play.
Yeah, the 12th land would have been great for him. I don't know that the game would last that long with Kazarov in play, but...
Right. So much of Magic is kind of trying to find an optimal use for your mana, drawing an optimal mixture of lands and spells, making sure that everything runs smoothly, and just kind of getting onto the battlefield. Late in the game, you need to find something to do with that mana, or you're going to get run over by just the density of your opponent's deck.
All right, well, both players are keeping, and we are underway here for Game 3, the last round of Swiss. Top 8 berth on the line, and Andrew Kunio cycles Wizard's Fury. Just gets a card deeper into his deck. No plays on turn 2 for either of these top 8 hopefuls.
Wow, and Andrew has to be thrilled that Nick has passed on turn 2 and 3, right? When you're playing against a deck that you've seen 2 Time of Ices, the last thing you want to see is 2-drop, 3-drop Time of Ice. Nick has none of that.
Deathbloom Thallid, but he does have 2 creatures in Call the Cavalry on turn 4.
Yeah, Call of Cavalry, strong card, but Andrew has it pretty well defended with a Deathbloom Thallid. And certainly with Andrew being on the draw and having that extra card, he's totally fine making a trade of Deathbloom Thallid for half the Call of Cavalry.
This is going to be a Rampaging Cyclops, is my guess. Yes. There you go. And again, not a great creature attacking here, but boy, it holds the ground perfectly for Andrew against those two soldier tokens.
Right.
So it's 2 knights, I should say. So now we're in the Cloud Reader Sphinx phase of Nick Neal's deck, but instead he has another Call of Cavalry.
Yeah, so Nick will be looking for some way to amplify all of his creatures. So something like a charge or something like that. But right now it looks like Andrew's draw is matching up really well against Nick, and this is why when I talked earlier, Call to the Cavalry being one of the cards that ended up disappointing me in this format. By the time you get to that turn 4, turn 5, you really need to be attacking evasively with the white-blue deck. A bunch of 2/2 Vigilance creatures, most people can handle that.
Now, see another card we talked about using mana. See another card that's really great in Andrew's deck, Gitu Chronicler. So if he goes land, Fiery Intervention, land, Gitu Chronicler, that's something that he's going to use a Keldon Raider. He's going to get rid of that Gitu Chronicler because he doesn't have a 5th land right now.
Yeah,
and so it's not doing anything for him for the next few turns.
If you're Nick, you must be thinking Andrew's hand must be so good, right? If that's the worst card in his hand, is it Gitu Chronicler?
All right, there is a Davenant Trapper, and that's a card that lets him take advantage of his superior numbers on the ground.
Yeah, it's really, really threatening, very scary for Andrew. And Andrew would love to kind of turn the corner here and get some attacks in, but he's going to have to respect the possibility that Nick has a turn in which he's able to trigger Davenant Trapper multiple times. And now with how wide Nick is gone, Davenant Trapper kind of just sitting there statically on the board is going to dramatically change the way that Andrew's approaching this game.
I've got a floor update from elsewhere in the convention hall. Mike Sigris versus Matthew Gosler is the finals of the last beta draft qualifier. They're going to be getting started in the next 5 minutes. So pretty exciting for Mark Gosler and pretty exciting for fans of Mike Sigris.
Right.
Sweating him that maybe he's going to get this last spot. So there's an unwind on a dark bargain. Same thing we saw last time.
And honestly, I don't think Andrew's that upset to see his dark bargain get unwound. It's obviously, he's got plenty of gas in his hand, as evidenced by discarding Gitu Chronicler. So I'm sure there are other non-creature spells he would be fine to resolve in this game.
So Fiery Intervention is going to take out the Chronicler, and we're going to see like an Adamant Will here. Nope.
Yeah, and you see Andrew respects the Davenant Trapper so much. He knows, look, Nick has no flyers on the battlefield right now. The way that I lose this game is by taking chunk damage where Davenant Trapper sets up some disastrous turn. And Nick plays a Juggernaut into a board that includes Deathbloom Thallid. So Andrew's got to be scratching his head thinking, what's going on here, right? Like, what is the situation? He can't possibly be intending to just trade this Juggernaut off for Deathbloom Thallid.
Yep, Juggernaut, Deathbloom Thallid.
Wow.
I love the sort of game of Juggernaut. You're like, why are they? Oh, they have to attack.
Right.
Sometimes you can really hide a combat trick pretty well with it.
And one would imagine Andrew has a removal for this Lyra. Yeah.
Yeah, he does. There's a Fiery Intervention.
Because he very aggressively Fiery Intervention the Davenant Trapper, which is a major problem, certainly. But given, again, discarding Gitu Chronicler, Nick will have expected that Andrew's hand was fairly stacked and certainly wasn't, too happy. Teshar, major threat here on this board, though, with that Davenant Trapper threatening to come back. So Andrew's certainly going to want to get rid of that as quickly as possible.
Well, he does. It looks like he does have an Eldest Reborn in hand, but that's only going to get a Knight. But if he can make it happen fast enough, it may end up with him getting a Lyra.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a possibility. It's a little scary, though, right? When you're playing against a blue deck and you steal one of their legendary creatures, you always risk Academy Journey Mage or Blink with an Eye returning it to his own hand. Now Lyra becomes a threat again. Yeah, that's a gut punch.
Invoke the Divine makes it moot. He's going to get rid of that Eldest Reborn. Gain some life, and in comes the Flyer.
Man, and to trigger the Teshar would have been so nice for Nick that turn, to get something else onto the board and return Davenant Trapper.
can Andrew deal with Tashar before that becomes relevant?
Yeah, it's possible. And Tashar, from a life total perspective, is not putting a ton of pressure on Andrew. Nick only has one card left in his hand. A lot of the ways that Nick wins this game involve him doing things like divination or weighted memory, where he's able to do multiple things in one turn. So that's something that Andrew's going to be considering here. And at some point, he does need to attack, right? Nick's at 24 life with a bunch of ground defense out.
I think he does have a Kazarov in hand again.
Okay.
But still a mana away from
right.
getting that going.
We see a rare moment here. Andrew Kunio in the tank, a very, very fast player.
In comes the Keldon Raider.
And you see why he was so skeptical or so hesitant to make this attack, rather. Nick has a fairly obvious block of Mesa Unicorn plus a Knight, which, if he would combine with Tashar, means that you can kind of return the Unicorn for free. Nick at 24 just elects to take it.
And he does that, but he has a fight with fire.
Wow.
For the Tashar.
And now we see why Andrew made the attack with the Keldon Raider. He knew that Nick wasn't going to get an opportunity to use the Tashar trigger on his turn. So,
all right, Nick is casting Opt here and digging, looking for something. He just passes the turn. So he's got the ground locked up, but it's only a matter of time before Andrew lands his legend and he could start, mowing down that team.
Right.
In fact, Andrew's not even going to wait that long. He's just going to start bashing in. 2-for-1s on either side here for him.
Right. I mean, there's a tendency to want to say, why do I want to trade my creatures for your 2/2s when I can just mow them down with Kazarov? And that's certainly an instinct that many players have. But in this case, when you're getting such favorable trades in combat, you don't need to rely on Kazarov because you put all your eggs in that basket, and then all of a sudden you lose to something like Blessed Light. So
it also gets himself closer to being able to actually get the Rampaging Cyclops into combat.
Right.
And that right now on this board, the Cyclops is an Abyss.
Yep. And Nick seems like he's flooding out a bit here, which is something that we talked about earlier, right? Nick's deck is much more prone to flood.
And with the Kazarov in hand, Andrew could draw lands for the next several turns and be perfectly happy.
Does he also have a copy of Varric's Bladewing? I've been trying to take a peek at his hand.
I think he might.
Wow.
He does, and he's just going to play it, not wait for it to get kicked. I think a big part of playing Magic is also realizing sometimes, you just got to get that into play.
Right.
It's easy to fantasize about getting 2 4/4s there.
And Andrew has sensed that he's completely turned the corner in this game. I mean, you can see the board. He passed with Nick having no creatures out. So he's thinking about, again, something like Weight of Memory drawing into 3 powerful spells being the most likely way that Nick gets back in the game. So he doesn't need the value from Varric's. He wants the kind of the speed of Varric's. He wants to get Nick down to 0 before Nick draws what he could potentially have left in his deck.
Everything comes in here. And the Cloud Reader Sphinx is going to get in the way of the Keldon Warcaller. Maybe.
Yeah, and Andrew, I think
he's going to get in for 10 here.
Yeah.
I've got another Keldon Warcaller.
Right.
I don't care.
Yeah, when you've got Warcallers to spare, when you're so Warcaller rich.
All right, now we're going to see Sergeant at Arms, and Nick's going to go a little wide here on the ground.
Yeah, and Sergeant at Arms, this is a good spot for Sergeant at Arms. I mean, it matches up very well against what Andrew's doing, but that Varric's is sized perfectly to keep attacking through Cloud Reader Sphinx, and Nick needs to find an answer for its stat.
All right, here comes Varric's. And it looks like Nick's going to fall to 4 here.
Yep.
Certainly don't want to chump block. Maybe there's another Cloud Reader Sphinx in your future.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. There it is. Kazarov.
And
Sengir Pure Blood.
And now it's going to have to be something like In Bolus's Clutches here to have a chance.
And that's maybe he has it because in his deck, because that's certainly how Nick played it. Well, it shows the syncopate makes the most good sport there from Nick Neal. Andrew Kunio very likely just clinched another Grand Prix top 8 slot. Great job by him. And again, really can learn a lot watching him play Magic. That's true of all the great players, but Andrew does it a little differently, I think, sometimes than a lot of other players.
Yeah, I really enjoyed actually the way that both of those players played with speed, and you can see afterwards the smiling. I mean, it's just, we're playing a card game here. You know what I mean? It gets very serious sometimes. We're talking about the prizes. There's prestige involved in trophies, but they moved through all of their actions very quickly. They were sportsmen about it, and great run for Nick, but congratulations to Andrew.
And one of the things I love about Andrew is Andrew's been playing this game for about as long as anybody. 24, 25 years maybe. I know certainly was playing, around 94 on the East Coast, maybe even started playing earlier. Would not shock me if he was at Gen Con in 1993. And to be playing the game for as long as he has, still be playing it successfully, still be playing it in a way that as committed to it as he is. You know all too well what the commitment is to go to something like every Pro Tour, be a part of a team that play testing. So it's great to see him still getting rewarded for his dedication to the game, 2.5 decades later.
Yeah, one of the best, and there was a stretch where Andrew Kunio was probably one of the top 10 finishers in the Pro Tour for about 3 years and could never break through to those top 8. So gets it done here at the Grand Prix level, and I'm sure the next Pro Tour top 8 not far behind.
Yeah, and the next match we want to watch about getting to the top 8 here at this Grand Prix, not too far behind either. Got it coming up right after these messages. Welcome back to the booth. We've got some more magic to show you. We've got another win and in, or potential win and in, top 8 match here at Grand Prix Las Vegas. So let's head down to the floor and get that queued up and see who our next competitor will be. All right, Daniel Bouillet. He's someone, again, this is 12-2 here. Adam Fox also 12-2. Those records will probably get updated after game 1. Unfortunately, it's our time walk match. We can't fix that, but Daniel Bouillet was the last 12-0 player in the tournament. Took 2 losses with this draft deck. And we have his deck right here. This is the deck it's a pretty good-looking deck, actually. Green-black. It's got the 2 woodland cemeteries and a lot of action.
Yeah, a pretty strong version of green-black, splashing for Fight with Fire. We saw him, though, pass one of the best decks I've seen in the format to Steve Rubin. So
Steve Rubin, who is, of course, already locked into the top 8 along with Michael Burnett.
Right.
The other person who we saw him draft that blue-white deck. That was, maybe one smidge off from Steve Rubin's ridiculous deck.
Right. We said that Steve Rubin was 50% to go 3-0. I neglected the possibility that he could go 2-0 and then take an intentional draw. So,
all right, Adam Fox has one of the skittering surveyors that we saw wandering around the table.
Yep. And Daniel just kind of lands and go.
Well, those are the only 2 mountains in his deck, by the way.
Wow.
But there's a woodland cemetery. He has 2 of those as well.
Yes.
And green is one of his main colors. And Mammoth Spider. Mammoth Spider's really had a breakout performance this weekend here at Grand Prix Las Vegas.
Yeah, Mammoth Spider is a card that has come up a bit in my estimation. It's not normally the kind of card I like to put in my decks, but it just does such a good job of locking it down.
Here's a Caligo Skin Witch, and that is going to hurt.
Oh, my God.
And it gets a Thorn Elemental.
And a Crozen
Druid. Wow. 2 cards that are, not very far off from being cast. They could have cast the Thorn Elemental this turn, but it looks like he held on to Fight with Fire.
Right.
As the one card he wanted to keep out of the 3.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess you're feeling that Mammoth Spider doing a good job of holding the fort for him, and he wants an answer to, Adam's next big play. Would be interesting to see maybe an attack from Daniel as Daniel getting down to Adam to 10 seems like one of the ways in which he's most likely to win this game.
Well, here comes something big, and it's a Feral Abomination, 5/5 Death Touch. Not often cards you see played on the very same turn.
This is an ensemble he's put together for sure, yeah.
G2 Lava Runner. It is a 1/2, very much not anywhere remotely near haste.
Yeah, so he's going to continue to hold on to the Fight with Fire, although I don't know what his plan is to deal with the Feral Abomination here. You can't just take 4 hits from it, so I think that he may eventually find that he needs to use his Fight with Fire to deal with Feral Abomination.
Sometimes when you have a situation like that, players will attack with their other creatures, maybe looking to whittle down the rest of his board, willing to take a little bit of a hit, but okay. Well, here you go.
So,
you can just block the Lava Runner here.
Yeah, so he's representing, something like Run Amok plus something else, possibly just Gideon's Reproach, the trade-off. There's a couple different things he could have.
Adam Fox was the person who loved Run Amok.
He does love to run amok. Although, a little surprising that you wouldn't send more creatures in then,
Sure.
We've seen a few times Caligo Skin Witch get a little bit antsy when it comes to these combat steps. I think he...
Caligo Skin Witch is only good at the hand zone, not very good at the on the board zone.
So here, G2 Lava Runner was just joking. He was just messing around with that attack, and
it's like I thought maybe you'd heard about my Run Amok antics. Although Run Amok still wouldn't have killed the spider there.
Yep.
Okay. Here's Tiana, ship's caretaker.
Yep. So a just messing attack from G2 Lava Runner that Daniel successfully sniffs out.
Well, here's Eviscerate for the Feral Abomination.
Yeah, and Daniel rewarded for his patience with that Fight with Fire. Now Tiana, a much less threatening attacker. He has a few, he has the resources on the table to deal with what Adam's presenting. So Daniel can maybe buy himself some time to draw 2 more lands and kick that Fight with Fire, which he'd certainly prefer to do.
Here comes Fire Intervention, a card we've seen a lot of, and it takes down the spider, and Adam is able to attack for 5 again this turn.
Wow.
So he's going to drop Daniel to 10.
Adventurous Impulse.
Adventurous Impulse, yeah. That looks like it's going to find a great big crawl wormy primordial worm.
Yeah, pretty decent here. Wow. So he's saying...
Wow, he is all in on this fight with fire.
Very much so, yeah. And it's got to be next turn. He really needs to draw a land on the very next turn. I'm sorry, no, he looks like maybe he already has the land. There's a light that's glaring. Yeah. They'll use the 1 mana for the Adventurous Impulse, so he will be able to kick Fight with Fire.
And just wipe out Adam's board and maybe even get a little bonus damage there.
Right.
But he's going to fall to 5.
Right. We have a little bit of glare right about where those mountains are. So.
All right, so 4 mana. Oh, there's a Thallid Omnivore.
Wow, that's an interesting card.
That's a really tough one here. You know what? Maybe he does have the Fight with Fire in hand.
He
right?
did have a Fight with Fire, yeah. So he's going to concede here.
Just realizes that nothing good can happen to him.
I mean, he could have dealt with a lot of the creatures. He would have left the Thallid Omnivore on the board. So just going to beat a hasty retreat.
All right. So now we are up to game 2. Daniel on the play. Again, had the 2 splashed mountains as his in his early draws there. Never quite got on the right foot in the draft in the match, and a slow start from Adam too. Just 2 lands. All right, there's a Deathbloom Thallid.
Yeah, and one of the kind of the key commons for these green black decks.
I love that card.
Yeah, it's good when you're trying to be aggressive. It's a great on defense. Obviously, the synergies with the fungus and the sapling creation. So I just had to look up to confirm that Fight with Fire was 9 mana to kick. For a second, I thought maybe it was 10, and that's why Daniel conceded. But
I mean, Kai would have texted you.
Right. Yeah, Kai Boot has been letting me know the moment that I get something wrong on camera.
Possibly one of the most avid consumers of coverage.
Certainly one of the most avid correctors of coverage that we have out there.
We've given him his fair share of work to do.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a second Deathbloom Thallid. The first one kind of gets dealt with by Vicious Offering.
Mm-hmm.
And there is the Rampaging Cyclops. 4/4, often defender.
Daniel looks like he has a hand heavy with green and black mana and not a ton to do with it right now. So having just passed the turn back.
What's the big signature card we're looking for from Daniel here?
We saw him use Urgoros, the empty one, pretty effectively earlier. He also has that Thorn Elemental that we saw him discard in Game 1. One of the best ways he can reward himself for having a go wide is by kicking Wild Onslaught, which is a card that we've seen do some work. He also has a couple copies of Dark Bargain in his deck, so we may see him cast one of those to
so here's
find
Sharing
action.
Fire takes care of, again, a big part of a Deathbloom Thallid, but leave some residue behind.
Right. It never feels great to use a removal spell on a creature that makes
never
a
leave
token.
a witness.
Yeah.
And now they get to attack for 2.
Yes, avenging their fungal fathers.
And now Caligo Skinwitch comes down from Daniel Bouillet.
Wow, and this is going to be a really powerful Skinwitch turnabout here. Adam's hand is 4 really, really strong spells. So this Skinwitch
at least
is
2 removal spells that I can see, and then the other 2. Agonizing.
Yeah, this Skinwitch looks amazing.
He's thinking about are these really the 2 cards I want to discard?
Well, one of the cards in his hand is On Sarah's Wings, and he currently doesn't have any white mana, so...
Seems like that should be an easy discard, but again, it's such a powerful spell whenever you draw it.
Yeah, and he didn't see a lot of removal from Daniel's deck in Game 1. He saw an Eviscerate and a Fight with Fire. Or didn't see the Fight with Fire.
He did not, yeah.
He really didn't see a lot of removal, so he might think that On Sarah's Wings on Rampaging Cyclops is incredible.
Okay, this is our time walk. We may get we have our top 8 announcement, so we're just going to mute here and let you play this out without our commentary, and so that way you won't hear which of these players is in the top 8. So just watch along silently. All right, welcome back to the commentary portion of the of this match. We now know who's in the top 8.
Wow.
We're not going to tell you.
Yep, it's a secret.
As these players are playing for that top. There's that planes that we talked about.
That's just good, clean living. That's the way to do it. Just draw that planes.
Well, this is what the foes of Navigator's Compass say.
Yeah.
And here's on Sarah's wings on the Rampaging Cyclops. It is now a 5-5 vigilant
And look at
life-linking. Basically, he's built a Lyra Dawnbringer.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly Adam being really rewarded for his choice to keep the On Sarah's wings against Daniel's Calico Skin, which it seemed I was skeptical at the time because he needed to just cleanly draw one of the 2 planes in his deck, but or the Skittering Surveyor to find it. But there it was, right on the top of his deck waiting for him. And On Sarah's wings on Rampaging Cyclops threatens to make short work of Daniel.
Yeah, this is just not the great line here from Daniel. He figures he has to attack, but this is... Oh, but he's got the Wild Onslaught.
Did he block?
If
he didn't block, he might just be dead. It's hard to tell if that Rampaging Cyclops entered combat or not.
7. What? Did he just kick a Wild Onslaught to death?
Wow. So
7 creatures, no block from Adam Fox.
Yeah, wow. So Adam chooses to take the damage, and he gets punished for it with an instant 21.
It was just kind of like that really casual, like, whatever, just attack with everybody.
21 is important here in Las Vegas.
Wow. Daniel Bouillet forces game 3.
Right. Facing a 5/5 Vigilance lifelink flying creature that he had no answer to with a bunch of 1/1s out and his opponent at 20.
7 1-power creatures.
No problem.
Kicks Wild Onslaught, puts 2+1/+1 counters on each of them, and deals 23 damage. 21 damage. Crazy. His opponent was at full life.
Yep, and here we are in game 3 with a spot in the top 8 on the line.
Untamed Kavu digging in there.
Daniel is not at 7, in case you were wondering. That would be a significant disadvantage to start a game of Magic.
Yeah, 20 plays 18 here, but
and
did we just miss a third land
Yeah,
drop?
no third land for Daniel, unfortunately.
Oh, no. And he's got plays too. He's got the Deathbloom Thallid there, it looks like. And Adam just goes straight to 4.
Yeah.
This will be a Rampaging Cyclops. No, it's a Keldon Raider. Yeah, discards a mountain, draws a card.
And folks at home, if you're anything like me, you're shaking your head a little bit whenever someone goes swamp or black land, red, white, just perfectly, just au natural. You know what I mean? Why do all of these jokers play fixing when I can just draw my lands that way? That's the way to do it.
That Deathbloom Thallid lines up really nicely with Keldon Raider.
Yep. Certainly. We're seeing the power of Deathbloom Thallid and really happy that Daniel drew that third land there so we can have a game.
Adam Fox, known to run amok. There's a Skittering Surveyor.
So he does have the fixing to go with Au Natural.
He's just going to decide what land he needs. Probably get a second swamp here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But, Daniel is Deathbloom Thallid matches up pretty well against Adams. Keldon Raider, he's found a third land, and obviously, as you always know, when someone misses a land drop, their hand is stacked with spells. So if Daniel's able to continue drawing lands, he can certainly compete.
Well, in comes Keldon Raider, and Daniel can't block fast enough, and Adam Fox, we know, cannot run amok fast enough.
And run amok,
but it looks great here.
It looks great here, yeah.
You know, that's a 7-power Keldon Raider that tramples over for 5 damage.
Yep. And when you're talking about pump spells like Run Amok or any combat trick like that, the best time to use it's when your opponent's tapped out, because you know you're not going to run into something nasty.
All right, 4th land here for Daniel. He is still very much in this game. And that's 3 Deathbloom Thalids. I mean, he can put roadblocks in the way of that Keldon Raider for a while here.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the 4th that Deathbloom Thallid in his deck, the Lenore Envoy.
Right, Lenore Envoy is a card that, at least in my circles, gets a disproportionate amount of hate, and I do not understand it at all. Like, the card is just slightly undersized for the converted mana cost, but a lot of times in these decks, like for example, splashing Fight with Fire, you don't want to wait to draw that mountain. You don't want to necessarily play anything like a Navigator's Compass. So the fact that Lenore Envoy can occasionally make that red mana, I think, is really strong.
Daniel puts a Thallid token and the Untamed Kavu in the way of the Keldon Raider, and you know what? Surprise of nobody, a 2nd copy of Run Amok. And it's going to be interesting to see how Daniel stabilizes here.
Yeah, Adam Fox, the preeminent connoisseur of Run Amok so far in this tournament, and in this game, it is looking absolutely fantastic.
And there's the Thallid Omnivore. Oh, by the way, if you're going to run amok,
yes,
that is the creature to run amok with.
Yes. All right, but Daniel has found another land, so 3 straight lands after missing his 3rd land drop.
Mammoth Spider is going to come down here. Possibly Eldest Reborn. How is Daniel going to deal with 2 cards left in hand for Adam Fox? Possibly 2 more Run Amoks.
Yeah.
And so this is what you talked about exactly. Lenore Envoy allows Daniel to filter 2 mana into 1 red mana and Fight with Fire that Thallid Omnivore while Adam Fox is tapped out.
Yeah,
and can't sacrifice a creature. 2 creatures to
and
save it.
Lenore Envoy matches up pretty well with Keldon Raider. He also has a Mammoth Spider in his hand that matches up pretty well with Keldon Raider, but none of those match up very well against a Thallid Omnivore.
Yeah.
Of course, Adam has access to Memorial to Folly, so that Omnivore could come back, but that Fight with Fire is going to buy Daniel a pretty significant amount of time.
Yeah, but now he has time to deploy his hand, attrition Adam's existing board.
Right.
And so here comes Keldon Raider.
And he can't block fast enough.
He can't block fast enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, oh, thank God. He doesn't have another one.
Right.
No one ever expects the 3rd.
No. Uh-oh.
Amok. 5 mana. What is this? Okay.
Ooh, and another Memorial to Folly.
2 Memorial to Folly there.
And 2 pretty attractive targets in Adam's graveyard, so he keeps the pressure on here, certainly.
Yeah, Tiana Ship's Caretaker, 3/3, 1st strike. It's going to be a little difficult. If he can clear that spider, that card can do a lot of work.
Clear the spider or find some way to amplify Tiana. Tiana's been probably one of the more disappointing cards, as far as that uncommon cycle goes. You think of Tayova and Rona. We've seen them do such amazing work. Not on that level is Tiana, but still, if Adam finds an equipment or some way to buff her or get rid of the Mammoth Spider, could be quite a problem.
All right, it looks like he's thinking about Memorial to Folly here. Targeting the Thallid Omnivore, plays a land, replays the Omnivore. Okay. I like how he's going here.
Wow.
There's Soul Salvage. Pretty exciting. Gets Deathloom Thallid and an Untamed Kavu, which he'll be able to play next turn. And the Mammoth Spider still holding the flyer at bay. Tiana cannot attack. We're going to see another Memorial to Folly now. Oh, there's Fiery Intervention. Oh, boy. This could be trouble.
Yeah, decision point here for Adam. Does he bring in the Thallid on the board? Does he want to trade a Skittering Surveyor, just to deal with the Deathbloom Thallid? That's not that exciting to me, but okay, wow.
Yeah, he decides to go with everything.
Interesting.
And he's out of run amok, so he sacrifices.
It's defensible,
Yeah.
Obviously it leaves him on board with another exciting attack the next turn. Adam knows, of course, Daniel has all spells in his hand, right? He missed a land drop and then just played lands after that, so at least 3 spells waiting for him.
Remember, Daniel started this tournament out 12-0. He
Wow.
was the last undefeated player in the room. 1 game left to convert that into a top 8 here, and he's been up against it. There's Windgrace Acolyte. That's a nice card. It doesn't tussle with the Tiana, but it does gain him a little bit of life and gets him set up to maybe get into some kind of race here.
Yeah, decent. Yeah, it's certainly decent and threatens the trade-off for the Omnivore. Adam would love some sort of token generation, some sort of creature buff, any more removal. Basically anything that Adam has here is super strong. This looks strong, whatever it is. Tapping that many mana is a horrible sign for Daniel. Untapping that many mana,
that's a much
better sign for Daniel.
What do you think we're thinking about here?
Well, 5 mana can be many things. Could be another Fiery Intervention, perhaps.
The problem with a removal spell is he can just attack here.
Right.
And let Daniel decide whether or not he wants to get in the way of the Tiana.
Yeah, and I don't think that he minds trading the Omnivore off for the Windgrace Acolyte, but if he doesn't have to, we'd prefer not to. Interesting. This is one of those points that he just wants to be super careful.
Okay, and he decides that he will actually make that trade. Tiana gets him for 3. Remember, there's a lot on the line for these guys.
Yeah, and you notice they started playing a lot faster, which I really appreciate.
In addition to the top 8, remember, there's a Pro Tour invite on the line.
Yes.
Regardless of whether or not you make the top 8 at 13-2, you get invited to the Pro Tour. You get airfare to the Pro Tour.
Yep.
That's a huge deal. That's why a lot of people are playing in this tournament. There's people are obviously playing for the money, playing for the history books, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the players here are just trying to get to the Pro Tour. This is one of the few opportunities where multiple slots are in play at one time.
Yeah, I mean, I won a few PTQs back in the day, but I didn't really consistently get on the Pro Tour until they brought back-to-back Grand Prix to California and back-to-back weekends in Anaheim and Oakland. I made top 8 of both, and that got me onto the Pro Tour, for the full time.
Basically led to your resurgence,
yeah,
and ultimately to your Hall of Fame.
That's right.
Very exciting.
Yep.
All right, so he's regrowing a Keldon Raider here with Memorial to Folly.
And Daniel now saying go with 8 mana up. And again, Adam knows that Daniel has 3 spells in his hand. He doesn't know what they are, but he knows he has 3 spells. So Adam's thinking, what does he have where he's saying go with 8 mana up? That's maybe stuff like Dark Bargain, maybe Sprout Swarm, maybe Shivan Fire he's got to be thinking about.
Definitely has a Dark Bargain. Got to be a little nervous about firing it off, although it doesn't necessarily... Oh, it does change the clock. Turns it from a 2-turn clock, 3-turn clock to a 2-turn clock. But sometimes you have to risk that to just find something to deal with this Tiana.
Adam, who died out of nowhere in game 2, is doing some, I think, Sprout Swarm plus Wild Onslaught math right there.
Yeah,
so he's saying, okay,
well advised.
1/1/1 plus 3. Okay, 12. Okay, I'm not dead next turn, even if he has all of that.
Well, look, he doesn't actually attack with Tiana here.
Interesting.
In fact, exactly what you're talking about. He gets rid of that second Dark Bargain, keeps 2 cards. There's a Sprout Swarm.
Yeah, Adam traumatized by that second game, certainly. Now, we see that Daniel's life total is 6, right? So not attacking with Tiana looks a little bit weird in that context, but when Adam made the decision to not attack, Daniel was actually at 8. That he went down to 6 through the end of turn Dark Bargain. So
probably doesn't cast Dark Bargain if Adam blocks attacks.
So Adam's decision makes a lot more context given that information.
Daniel would not mind seeing maybe a Mending of Dominaria here to get him back a Mammoth Spider. All right, there's a Primordial Worm. There's an Untamed Kavu, unkicked Kavu.
Yep.
Really. That's been in his hand for a while.
And now Daniel, I think, is kind of has the great situation here where he can both attack with Tiana and still, say, go and survive a wild onslaught. The first eruption?
Is that the first eruption? I thought maybe I've seen the Flame of Keld. But it just wipes out Daniel's 1/1s.
Yeah, and for Adam Fox, that is such a warm feeling because now all the crazy go-wide nonsense, things like Wild Onslaught, things like Thallid Omnivore threatening to gain a ton of life are no longer in play. Adam can attack Daniel down to 3 and be very sure that he's going to get to see another turn.
All right, Tiana attacks. And that's the hand. Adam Fox gets himself to 13-2. I could tell you that he does get into the top 8.
Wow.
Daniel Bouillet, right, man, what a heartbreaker for him to get to 12-0 at the GP. You really just have to win one round of the draft at that point. Your tiebreakers are going to be great. And it looked like a pretty good deck.
Yep.
I mean, it didn't look like, the best deck at the table. We saw some great ones, but maybe it's just a case of the power at the table was so high that a pretty good deck, not good enough here. And there, nice sportsmanship between Adam Fox and Daniel. He's like, go kick some butt at the Pro Tour.
Yeah. And Adam Fox,
of me.
You could see afterwards he held his head in his hand, overcome by emotion. As we mentioned before, making the top 8 of a Grand Prix for 99+% of Magic players is kind of their pinnacle achievement. He's on the Pro Tour now. He's in the top 8. And shortly he'll be drafting for a chance to win $10,000 in another Grand Prix Las Vegas trophy.
Oh, well, let's take a look at the top 8 standings. They are ready. We can tell you that Steve Rubin, the Pro Tour champion, he's there with the 40 points in top seed. Michael Burnett, a veteran competitor, someone Rashad apparently knows pretty well. I saw them talking. He's from Chicago. Adam Fox, we just watched him play. We just watched him overcome with emotion as he got that spot. Mark Jacobson, someone who's been a big part of that, that was East-West Bowl, which is sort of evolved into the Mass Drop teams. Andrew Kunio, your teammate on Team Ultimate Guard, and someone who's been playing Magic for as long as, well, there's been Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor Gower, someone we haven't really gotten to see. Austin Mowry, someone we saw in the feature match area earlier, and Daniel Jose Garcia Rosas. I'm not sure. It's just absolutely destroyed. I think his name is an emoji based on our graphic here.
In 2018, I'm fairly certain you're allowed to use whatever characters and letters you want in your name. It's that's the modern world.
Yeah. But so great job to these guys. You see 3 players with 39 points. Nathan Eager, Roger Sampson, Jason Tice, 4 of them actually, and Wilson Mock. They are going to be on the outside looking in and playing in the top 8, but they are all qualified for the Pro Tour. They're all going to earn a ticket to the Pro Tour, so great job by them.
Yeah.
Again, you can't control anything. You can't control your tiebreakers. You just play the best Magic you can and hope to qualify for the Pro Tour.
Yeah, and these tournaments are so big now. Unfortunately, not every 13-2 is going to make top 8. We'd love if they could, but obviously having that blue envelope, if you will, as a fallback is a nice consolation prize.
Love a blue envelope.
And they'll win $1,000 to boot.
Yeah. So great job by everybody. We've got some more Magic coming up for you. You know what it's going to be? A top 8 draft, and after that, the Beta Rochester draft. Aaron Forsythe's going to join us in the booth for that. Don't go anywhere. Lots of super exciting Magic to show you down the stretch here at Grand Prix Las Vegas.